Outlaw Law is brought to you by Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Your law firm for life.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm, practicing attorneys here in the great state of North Carolina. Also in studio with us today, Cassandra Nicholas and Ashley Pinner, also attorneys at Whitaker and Hamer. Conveniently located offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, Gastonia, and coming to Morehead City. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. We talk legalese each and every week here on The Outlaw Lawyer, and we give you an opportunity, if you've got a legal question you're facing, get in touch with the firm. Call 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call is about. An attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. You can always email your questions to the show. That's questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. And please check out the website. It's cool, theoutlawlawyer.com. Josh?
All right, so we're up to our listener question number 2 on our show, dedicated to defining and answering questions about different fiduciaries that our clients encounter in kind of daily life. And so listener question number 2 is, what is a trustee and what do they do? Ashley, what is a trustee?
So trustee is another fiduciary role, someone who, again, that you trust, that you're putting in a position where they are going to be managing assets and distributing them to named beneficiaries. So you might create a living trust and appoint that trustee and to carry out your wishes after your death. You might create a will that contains language in it to create a trust after your death, and that would appoint the trustee. So can come about in different ways, in different documents, but again, always someone that you trust, and fairly good with accounting details, right? Not just trustworthy, but also good record keepers, generally speaking.
Yeah, you don't want to appoint your buddy that bounces a lot of checks or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, might be a great guy and certainly someone that you want to keep in your circle, but not that you want to put in a fiduciary role.
Sounds like you want to appoint a nerd, if you know that.
Yeah. So usually my clients, if they've got anyone with some kind of accounting background, my brother-in-law's a CPA, I'm going to put him in that position. And then, of course, you might have corporate trustees, someone who, again, performs this as a duty of their job and might be a financial planner or advisor or their firm typically, and that's certainly a special circumstance you would want to know a lot about.
Yeah, a lot of times in the estate planning process, when we talk to someone about a trustee, you're trying to figure out who's going to manage your assets for, a lot of times it's your underage children. A lot of times you're thinking about if something happens to you and your spouse at the same time, an unfortunate accident, you don't make it all the way to your, the whatever. What's the average? When do people die averagely? 74?
77
28.
in the U.S., but it's very flexible by state. There was a report that came out this week.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you're not making it into your 70s. You're appointing someone to take your assets and manage them for the benefit of your children. And so a lot of times you can create a trust that's I sat down with some clients yesterday and we talked about some things they wanted to do for their kids if something happens to them early on. Like they want the trustee to make sure, of course, if they go to any kind of school after high school, that they're getting their books paid for, they're getting their tuition, they got a place to live. The trustee has the power to, a lot of times the trustee will have the power to just, your assets may be producing interest. And so that interest can go to the children, but they may also have the power to go into the corpus. So whatever you've got invested, if the kid needs something, needs a car. And then I think we talked about getting the kids some gifts along the way, right? When you get to 30, I want you to have this. And if you get your first kid, I want you to have this. I want a down payment for the house. And so you can really structure these things depending on what your assets are. I hope I die with $0. But if you die with a lot of assets,
I can help you out with that.
the trustee is the one who's going to fill this role for you. So you might also be, if you're talking to Ashley, you might also be talking about maybe who would be guardian of your children, who you'd want to take care of them if something happens to you. But the trustee is a little bit different. That's the one who's going to be managing the money, keeping the records. Often they have to file some reports. They owe a fiduciary duty not only to you, but to the beneficiary. So the children would be beneficiaries of the trust. And so I think there's multiple fiduciary relationships in that role. But Cassandra, you see where people have to step into this role once our client has passed away.
Yeah, I do have, even right now, there's one estate that I'm dealing with that Ashley wrote the will for, and a minor inherited some personal property, and a trust was created within the will. So there's a trustee just holding on to this personal property for the minor until they're of age, until they're 21. So that's a lesser fiduciary duty, but they need to hold on to that property and not lose it. So that is someone you want to trust not to lose that.
Yeah. And a good rule follower. I think of the trust as kind of an instruction manual that's been left behind by our decedent, the person who has passed away, and now we're left with instructions as to how to manage and distribute these assets. So someone, you want to typically give your trustee some discretion in case we've not thought of every possible use of those funds, and that's where, again, the trust is important. But also, we've got to feel good about this person, that they're going to follow our instructions. Sometimes folks are, worried that they might appoint, grandma or aunt who's going to be a little too loosey-goosey with the funds and give it all away too soon. And to those folks, I say, maybe we need to consider someone else, or we've got to really tighten up our rules, our guidelines for distribution.
Yeah, you really have to figure out how sophisticated your trustee needs to be. And then sometimes a family member is a good fit that maybe has some experience and that you trust. But if you die and you're got $10 million in assets that need to be managed, maybe a family member is not the best person. And so a professional trustee would be an attorney, a CPA, your financial advisor. All those people can serve in that role. Of course, you've got to get their permission, right? They've got to accept that duty. And I'm sure there's usually fees for that, right? If your aunt or your cousin does it, they may not charge any fees to the trust. But if, again, you got like $10 million, it needs to be invested, there's real property that needs to be managed, you may need a professional, and it may be worth your money.
Absolutely. And I mean, then in the planning stages, you want to have met with that professional as well. If it does look like when you pass, you're going to be in that wealth bracket, you want to know what the fees for that service are going to be. I am not a financial planner or advisor, so I always defer and refer my clients out. But you want to get the general sense of what needs to be in this trust so that the fees are not eating away at the corpus, such that we're losing funds that could go to that beneficiary.
And so that would be an institutional trustee. A lot of times we'll call those institutional trustees the banks of the world and the investment advisors of the world, because your cousin you grew up with might not be the one to manage your $10 million portfolio after you're gone. So definitely a role that requires some extra trust, and that's why it's a fiduciary relationship. So that is a trustee, and that is what they do. You'll see the trustee occupation come up in other areas of law. It comes up in real estate. There's a trustee on your deed of trust, your mortgage document. That's so you'll see that here or there, but in the estate planning, estate administration world, that's kind of what it means.
The Outlaw Lawyers, we have Josh Whitaker, Joe Hamer, managing partners, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. They host each and every week. It is Legalese. We talk the topics. We're doing questions from our listeners today. We have special guests in studio, Cassandra Nicholas, who is becoming a regular. We may have to start paying her. Ashley Pinner, also joining us, first time on the program. Ashley's doing a great job. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. Offices located for Whitaker and Hamer, and they're everywhere, folks. Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, Gastonia, and coming soon to Morehead City. If you've got a legal situation you're facing, you've got questions, I've got a way you can get an answer. Call this number, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what that call is about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And you can always email your questions to the program. We'll answer them on future shows. Questions at theoutlawlawyer.com. Again, check out the website, theoutlawlawyer.com. We're back on the other side.